Welcome, everyone, to our Fireside Chat with Lori Weise, founder and executive director of Downtown Dog Rescue and subject of the new book, Rethinking Rescue. This Fireside Chat isn't just about the evolution of rescue, it's about the personal journey that fuels the work and the emotional complexity of staying in it for the long haul. It's about resilience, presence, and boundaries in a field that demands so much of us. If you've been in this space for any amount of time, you've probably heard Lori Weise's name spoken with a kind of reverence. People talk about her like she's a saint, someone who has dedicated her life to helping the most vulnerable and somehow always stood against the grain with the right words, the right solutions, and the unwavering commitment to keep going. Her work is extraordinary. As the founder and executive director of Downtown Dog Rescue, she has redefined what rescue actually means, proving that keeping pets and people together isn't just possible, it's necessary. But here's the thing, Lori is not a saint. She is a person who, like so many of us, found her way into this work through her own experiences, her own struggles, and her own need to make sense of the world. If you've read Rethinking Rescue, the new book that chronicles her journey, you know that she's not just saving lives. This work has, in many ways, saved her too. And I think that's something a lot of us can relate to, actually. Because this work is deeply personal, it's fulfilling, yes, but it's also painful. It requires us to stay present, to navigate incredibly difficult situations, and to engage with people who don't always make it easy. And yet, Lori is still here. She has found a way to do this work day after day, sometimes with burnout and shutting down on the horizon, but ultimately with resilience and without losing the heart that makes her so effective. Lori not only continues the work, but somehow deepens it as she continues. How? That's exactly what we're here to talk about. So let's dive in. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Lori Weise in the chat. So thank you, Lori, for joining us. It's an honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Christine. We've known each other a very long time, for
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. We have known each other for a long time. So I've been deeply interested in Downtown Dog Rescue for a long time, but I shouldn't assume that everyone here knows who you are and what you've done. So for the folks who are not as familiar, can you give us just a quick overview of the history of DDR and what you do today?
Sure. I'm the executive director and the founder of Downtown Dog Rescue. It started kind of by chance about almost 30 years ago. So I'm going to be turning 60 next week. So I was about 30 years old and very confused in life, still going to college and working a new job when I ended up working near Skid Row. And just that kind of connection to the community day in, day out is really what started Downtown Dog Rescue. At the time, it was just me and a coworker helping one person. His name was Benny Joseph. He's passed away, and his pit bull Ironhead. And with no knowledge, I didn't even know there were rescues or how it worked, or had zero desire to start a nonprofit. We just started helping him, and just like any small business that's doing a good job, his friends, he started referring to friends, and it just grew and grew and grew. So over time, that was in 1996, and fast forward today, we have our spay and neuter clinic. We own a kennel and operate a rescue dog kennel. We have a thrift store for pets. And I think most importantly, it's the team and the group of people that have continued to support not only DDR, but personally to support me. It's an amazing group of people that are so dedicated to the cause of just basically asking people, how can we help you with your pet? How can we help you today? What is it that we can do?
Well, thank you for that context on DDR's work. So I was going through my old emails the other day and I found the very first ones I ever sent to you, dated for December 2012, from my museumofanimals.org email address. And at that time, I was putting together an exhibit also called My Dog is My Home. And I reached out to you hoping to learn more about your work. And you, being very generous with your knowledge and your time, said yes. And you invited me to what I believe was a Modernica warehouse in Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
My now husband was with me and he waited outside thinking that we'd only talk for about 30 minutes. But I emerged about 2 hours later and I was completely awestruck by you and our conversation. And like so many others, I walked away thinking, well, Lori must be some sort of saint or something. Um, but reading,
Hardly, hardly.
well,
Yeah.
so that's what I found. I found so
Yeah.
interesting about Rethinking Rescue. So as I read Rethinking Rescue, I was struck by something very important in that, like, you don't actually see yourself this way. In fact, you sort of don't like it when people refer to you as a saint. And this work isn't just about saving others. In many ways, it's saved you too. So I do want to take a deeper look at that and start there. So before Downtown Dog Rescue became what it is today, what was driving you and what was happening in your early life or career that made you realize that this was the work that you needed to do?
Um, like I was saying, it wasn't really something that I aspired to do because at the time, back in 1996, I had started working this job. And when I say this job, it was working for a company called Modernica, which was also just kind of starting out. So my plan was just to work there for a while and finish college. I had not finished college at almost 30 years old. Didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but knew that I wanted to help people. And that was always something that was really, I would say, like a driving force. Something my parents really, we always as a family were really into, just kind of not anything formal, but just helping people. So it was upsetting at first. Well, it can be still, but it was really upsetting to the point that it was unbearable, to go to Skid Row, to see animals just running the street and thinking, well, why are they here? And then the question, of course, it's like, I wanted to rescue all the dogs. I think like most people that just get into rescue, and that it's more about a need internally, although at the time I didn't understand it, but I really was beginning a very long path of basically rescuing myself, and it's still a process. So basically, DDR was born from a shift of perspective, from like, and it still is, like an urgency to really what are our intentions. Back then, we started, everything was a big reaction, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. And I feel like today we're definitely in a more creative place, as is my life personally. And I, I just every day, and again, this wasn't like a business plan or something that I set out, but everybody deserves compassion. Everybody deserves a chance to live out their dreams, whatever those dreams are. And people should be seen and be allowed to heal with dignity. Um, I grew up, if you buy the book, and everything. So in Rethinking Rescue, it really goes deep into how I grew up and just some of the challenges. And I think it's really important as it ties into this work is even when we first started working, Carol Mithers, who wrote the book, and um, she had made some comment. I mean, this is early on. This is maybe like 10 years. We're having these conversations, and she's like, wow, you really had a difficult childhood. And I walked away from that thinking, really? It's like, I thought I had a good childhood. It's so all that to say that the chaos and the instability, it just is normal. So I feel like every day when I'm helping somebody, I'm looking at them from a point of that they will feel perhaps like they're powerless and they are being left out of the conversation and they're basically forgotten. And that's how I felt most of my life. So it's not really something that, you know, like it wasn't something that, I'm trying to explain it, where I guess what I'm trying to say, it was a very personal, and it still is to this day. I'm not looking at a person or a family like they need help. I feel like they deserve help, and they deserve everything and more, that's coming to them. And for whatever reason, they don't have access to that. So I think with that mindset and that approach is really, that was the beginning of all the work that I did with my team in Skid Row in downtown and kind of how it evolved. Christine, I'm not being able to hear you.
Sorry, you'd think that I'd
Oh,
know how to do this by now. I'm
okay.
accidentally on mute. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, good.
So
It's not me.
I was saying that I think that so many of us can relate to that feeling of being deeply connected to the work that we do. And it's not just that we do this work, it's that we need this work.
Yes.
But there's a fine line between passion and burnout. I know this is something that a lot of people in this field struggle with, especially those of us who are deeply passionate. And you've been doing this work for so long now, Lori, and I know you've had to learn some really hard lessons along the way about setting boundaries and protecting yourself and staying present without overextending. So, what have you learned about striking that balance?
It's still a learning process. I have been diagnosed with major depressive or depression disorder. I'm very not terrific on like labels and diagnoses, but I think it's helpful in the sense that it's more than just being sad. I can't just kind of like, oh, just take a walk or go shopping or something. It's a very debilitating type of depression. So I had to learn, and I'm still in the process of learning how to balance compassion, empathy, self-care. And when I say self-care, it's not just, you know, like a lot of people might think, oh, it's like having a massage or taking a spa day. No, it's really about taking good care of myself, good nutrition, um, mentally. I have a psychiatrist, I have a psychologist that I can see and talk to and have access, as I do lots of friends and people that I can just be real with them. Um, and a key point of this is, and I know we're going to talk about poverty, but for us doing the work, we have to be financially sound and we have to have our financial house in order. So if we're struggling and we can't afford to pay the light bill or pay the rent that month, we're really not able to serve people. So it's really important to, I mean, I can say this, stay present and ensure sustainable support for the pets and the people that you serve. But it's also okay, and I've struggled with this, is it's okay to be a failure or to fail and to reset your goals and say, hey, that just didn't work like I planned. And every failure that I've had, I really have looked at it like a learning experience. It's helped me define what maybe I don't ever want to do again or how I want to approach it next time. And I think that's so important, is allowing the space for um, to just say, hey, I don't have all the answers, because I certainly do not.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lori. It's sort of affording ourselves the grace we extend forward to other people. And sometimes we find it easier to be understanding and compassionate for others and not so much for ourselves. I think one of the most remarkable shifts in your work over the years has been the move from traditional rescue thinking, where the focus was just about saving animals, to really rethinking, and challenging what rescue even means. So you've long been a pioneer in the movement to keep people and their pets together. And while many people in the animal welfare community are just beginning to grapple with the idea of keeping people and their pets together, you've obviously been doing that for decades. But you've taken it even further by focusing on the conditions that create hardships for people and animals who live together. And that's specifically the issue of poverty. So, can you talk about how that became a cornerstone of your approach and why it's so crucial to address poverty in this work?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really big question, but I would start by saying, as poverty relates to trauma. So, childhood trauma, young adult trauma, ongoing generational trauma, that, as I started off by saying, oftentimes people are not aware of where they're at. That's how deep the trauma is. And I'm still every day interested in the aspects of, how do I best serve pets and people? I've been doing this work for decades, and over time, I've realized that just helping pets is not it's never going to be enough. It's not fulfilling to me, and it's just definitely not the answer. So the question is, why are there so many people in crisis with their animals in the first place? The answer almost always comes back to, if not 100% of the time, it's poverty. But I really feel like that's an easy answer. And if we just throw money at something, it's going to get better. Or if we just house somebody, it's going to magically improve. And it's not. It's so complex. It's about housing, of course, housing insecurity. So, if we're lucky enough, you're living outside and you're lucky enough to find a place, so many people end up becoming homeless again because they're not given the support that they need. Definitely lack of veterinarian care, just all the systemic barriers that punish people for being poor. I mean, that could be a whole talk on itself. And once I saw that clearly, I just couldn't ignore it. Um, it's just changed my life forever.
And what does it look like practically when we begin addressing poverty directly in the context of this work? And also poverty, but all of the other things that make up kind of holistic, serving a person and their animal holistically.
Mm-hmm. So I think the real question we always have to ask is, you know, rather than trying to figure out the dynamics of the dog or the cat's personality, and how long they've owned the animal, or what we feel is their bonding level or whatever by our assessment. It really, I think the thing that grounds me the most is just asking myself in my head, especially when it's a difficult conversation. It's just like, what is happening in this person's life that's putting their pet in risk? Because there's just so many different things. So some of the ways that that are practical would mean like paying for a pet deposit for a family that has housing or just found housing and they can't afford the pet deposit, so they can get more stable housing. And maybe a lot of times too, it's not just paying a deposit or helping them find a place, it's being an advocate, because there's bumps in the road. There's neighbors that complain, and landlords that change their mind and all of that. It's also like covering a DMV charge, or paying for a car repair, or something totally unrelated to pets. I still do that, and I do that, generally I do that out of my own pocket, because I can see how paying for somebody's car, and that's how they get to their job, and that's how they're going to keep their housing, by keeping their job. It just makes sense. And it really, in animal welfare, it doesn't make sense that we're not investing in the people and what they need. Of course, providing low cost, no cost spay and neuter, vaccine clinics, which we run once a month with the Southern California Veterinarian Medical Association. And we make it so people can, show up, get the services they need, high quality. So it's high volume spay and neuter, high volume vaccinations, and just all types of veterinarian care. Sometimes you don't have to offer anything. It's just sitting down and listening, and being okay with knowing there is no good answer, and there is really nothing that you as an individual can do to like fix, which I try not to get in that mindset of fixing people. But it's definitely hard as somebody in rescue. I want to solve problems and I want to help people and animals, but sometimes it's just the listening. And it's very important to have the staff, volunteers trained to really understand and recognize trauma for what it is, and lead with compassion. And of course, the problems that come to us are rarely what I would call animal problems. Animal problems are easy to solve, and it's the people. It's these beautiful people that that we care about. They're the tough ones.
So I feel like you've arrived at this place through a lot of hard lessons that you've learned over the many years of doing this work. Do you have a story, perhaps, of a particular person and animal that demonstrates like one of these hard lessons and how it shifted the paradigm and the way you think about rescue work?
Yeah, I think maybe not a particular story, but overall, I think this is a theme that I really have observed, that this is really helpful. And it's helpful, I think, before I explain what it is, it's helpful to the person, but it's also helpful to you as the provider of the services, or the social worker, or whoever it is that's assisting, is the idea that you have to let things play out. Um, I think, if you do this work long enough, you get in situations where you're meeting a person and you see a pattern pretty quickly. And the solution seems very clear. Well, it just means this, like keep your dog on a leash and then it won't, be taken away by animal control. Or let's try to find housing or whatever it is. Um, but it doesn't end well. It ends in the pet getting hit by a car. It ends in the pet being taken away, and many, many times with animal control, knowing that somebody did not obey the rules. I can tell you one particular story. This one really hit home, and I still think about it. And this is a long time ago. This is probably 20 years ago. I was working with a man who had probably 7 or 8 Akitas, and he was living in his RV. And he was keeping these dogs on the top of his roof of his RV and chained up on the outside. And, animal control was really, the LA Animal Services, I have to say, they did everything they possibly could. They brought me in to talk to him, and they wanted him to get down to just like 2 dogs. And he was somebody that I don't know what his diagnosis would have been, but there was just no getting, him to deviate from his way of thinking. So animal control, basically, it was like a game of chicken. It's like, I'm going to take all your dogs away unless you start complying and show us you're working. And he and I had these long talks, and, fast forward to the day that all of his dogs were taken to the shelter. And he called me, and I went over there, and the dogs were pretty aggressive. So they weren't the type of dogs that were going to get adopted. And animal control, one of the officers just pulled me aside, and they said, if you get involved anymore, like, these dogs are dangerous, they've bitten people. And I just watched this man break down and cry, and there was tons of people in the lobby, and he was begging people to adopt his dogs to save their lives. And every single one of those dogs was euthanized, and it didn't have to be that way, you know. Um, and I know it just really had such a horrible impact on him. I saw him afterwards, and he didn't have any dogs, but I thought a lot about I still think about his dogs every time I see an Akita. And, I tell that story, and, there's many stories like that. And I do want to share, like, so many stories I never told, because in rescue, it's like, at least at the time, there's no excuse. You're a rescue. You should have taken all the dogs, even if you have to keep them in boarding for the rest of their lives. Killing them is the wrong thing to do. And I just always want to say, it's like, come walk a block in my shoes. People just don't have a clue what type of situations the people that we're working with are in. Unless you're directly involved, and you really have to be more involved than just you care about animals or whatever. This is, for me, it's all in. This is my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's definitely it's life changing.
Thank you for sharing that story, which has left such a mark on you. And when you say that you still continue to think about those dogs and this person every time you see a Nikita, I can feel it. Yeah. And I think you're right. It's probably hard for people who work in rescue to not feel like they have a prescription to fix an issue, that they have to act, that they have to jump in and, again, rescue everyone. So Lori, your commitment to this work, despite the hardships and the long hours and the difficult conversations, is really remarkable. And I think one of the most difficult aspects of this work is dealing with challenging personalities and behaviors. So let's be honest, sometimes it's not always easy to like the person that you're helping, but I think it's clear from your work that you've mastered the art of being consistently available and saying yes to the right things and saying no to other things and engaging fully in those moments. What's your approach to managing those difficult conversations, especially when it feels like you can't make everyone happy?
Again, this is something, this is a ongoing, a reset every single day of my life. But I have to say, it's these skills, as somebody that's been doing this almost 30 years, it's definitely, it's like training for a marathon or something. You get better. And as I had to learn, you might feel like you're going backwards in time, and you might feel like you've made no progress and you're not getting better, having these difficult conversations. But from somebody from outside will tell you, if not clients and different people, that you really had an impact on my life. If you would have made it easy, Lori, it just, I would have taken advantage of you. And you're right, Christine. It's like there's people that I help. And I want to say, too, there's dogs in my rescue right now. It's kind of a little joke with the dogs, not the people. But, I'll say, certain dogs, we just don't like each other. And, I love you. I want to see you get adopted. But, let's get you out of here. Let's get you adopted so fast. So, I mean, these are dogs and we can laugh about it, but with people, it's so different, and I don't have to like the person. They don't have to like me, but I have to be effective. I cannot let my ego take over and kind of drive the car. The idea of the overall mission, what the goals are, staying in the moment, not making myself. I think if you're leading with your ego, you're making decisions where oftentimes you're feeling like, hey, I'm personally responsible for this individual or for this situation. But in my mind, there is no person that can save every person, that can save every animal, nor should they. And the idea of systemic change is always more important than personal heroicism. I find, too, that doing more listening, active listening, and for me, these skills did not come easy. Again, I was attracted to rescue because I am a people pleaser and I want people to be happy, and I want animals to have beautiful homes, and I want to see the people on the street, get their homes and all of their sad stories and all of that. But it's just like, I have to remember, this is not about me. This is about being involved in somebody else's journey. And that journey, there's no way you can predict what that journey is for them. I know my life could have been a lot easier, and it still could be a lot easier, but I needed to go through all those things, as do everybody that I come in contact and develop a really meaningful relationship with.
And looking toward the future, Lori, as you think about the next generation of advocates coming up, what is it that you hope they'll carry forward? What's the legacy you want to see them build on?
Well, I'm very, very optimistic about the future of animal welfare, but not just animal welfare. I'm just very optimistic about just the world. I think that the young people that volunteer with me, that come to our clinics, that they're amazing. And some of them I have watched because I've done this so long, almost 30 years. Some of these little kids are now adults and have their own children, and there's a bond there. I mean, there's so much compassion. I kid around with them. It's like when I was growing up, I loved, I had my dog Heidi, and Heidi slept outside, and I don't think we ever put a leash on that dog. And now it's just like, I mean, she was part of our family, but not like it is now. I mean, these young people and kids, I mean, they've grown up with animals being really part of the family, and they understand emotions and trauma, and they're just so much more open to ideas and not judging people. And I'm really enjoying this time in my life to kind of over time, doing less of the, like, because physically I just can't do as much with some of these bad dogs anymore. So watching them learn and just offering my support, but learning from them is so amazing. So I would say my great hope is that they continue this work and it continues to evolve, where one day we have this beautiful paradigm of One Health, where people can access mental health, they can access veterinarian care, they can access any type of their care that they need, regardless of what their immigration status is, regardless of anything. It's just that you need this help, and there are people that care enough to be there to offer it.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for sharing all of this. Your insights are so powerful, and I'm sure they've given everyone here so much to think about. So, this session isn't just about learning from Lori's approach to rescue, it's about learning from her approach to life in this work. It's about understanding that the work is personal, but it also doesn't have to break us. And that presence, relationships, and resilience are what keep us in it for the long haul. And I feel like that is everything about your story. If I had to boil it down to one simple thing, it's that Lori was here for the long haul.
Yeah.
If you haven't already read Rethinking Rescue, here's the book by Carol Mithers. I highly recommend it. It's an important book for those of us who work in animal welfare and at this specific intersection of housing insecurity, poverty, and animal welfare to read. So you can pick up your copy from My Dog Is My Home's bookshop.org link, which will be dropped in the chat momentarily. We will also be giving away a signed copy of Rethinking Rescue signed by the author at the end of the day today. So be sure to join us for our closing session today. And we want to thank Carol Mithers for setting that up for us and for signing that book. So as I said, Carol Mithers, the author of the book, she is actually here with us at the conference, and I believe she's here in this room. So I'd just like to, again, thank her for being here and for writing this incredible and very important book. She'll be holding a meetup called What We Can Learn from Lori Weise's Story tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So head over to the meetup section of Whova to RSVP for the opportunity to chat with the author. To find the meetup schedule in your mobile Whova app, click the community icon on the bottom menu of your screen. There you'll see an option to look at meetups and virtual meets. If you're joining us from your web browser, follow the same instruction. You'll just be looking for the community icon in the left-hand side menu, and then you click meetups and virtual meets. And before we wrap, I want to take some questions from the audience. And I appreciate the folks who have already started popping them into the Q&A here. So Lori, I have a question here for you. What advice do you have to build stronger partnerships between animal rescue and homelessness response system providers?
That is a big question. That is something that our organization struggles with. I think that what we found effective is finding somebody within the opposite organization. So somebody in the animal welfare that has a passion for helping people, and somebody within the agency that's offering services for people, and sort of meet in the middle. Because I think, as a nonprofit, all of us feel like we're underfunded, we're understaffed, and, adding something like pets to running a human shelter. I was an intern at Salvation Army for a year, and I saw how difficult it is to make that switch. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't really have a good answer, other than it just starts with a conversation and you have to build a trust.
I mean, I actually think that's good bite-sized advice, find your partner, have a conversation, build trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that it's overwhelming for people on both sides to think about, both on the homeless services side and the animal welfare side. And so kind of having those concrete discussions or points of advice is a great thing. So Lori, another question for you now, not like it was when you started. There are so many organizations in LA providing various services for people and their pets. What collaboration would you love to see happen or strengthen to support more human animal families?
Oh, I love that question, because that is one that I wish more people would ask. What we need to do is, we in LA, in every area, I think is I'm talking about, is rather than having pop-up clinics, rather than having these festivals, or it's all wonderful, everything helps, but what people need is real lasting resources. So we need to be, just like there are community health clinics where people can go for their own health. We need to be building these community veterinarian clinics where people can go. It's not free, maybe, but it's low cost, it's sustainable. And then when we are opening these clinics, let's hire from the community, and let's promote from within. That's pretty much, my latest venture, starting a spay and neuter clinic out of a retail space with a mobile clinic in the back. So it's a hybrid clinic. Getting very creative with that type of answers to this. But people, I guess, just to kind of wrap it up, people need consistency, so that, one day fare is great, or, offering support or a helpline or whatever, but we need concrete services that are going to last for more than a year, or a grant cycle.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Actually, I would love to have you talk more about the store, clinic, pantry, like all of that rolled into one space. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So, we have a kennel in Southgate. So we bought that property, and the rents in Southgate, it's very close to Watts in South Central LA. Rents are not outrageous. So, we rented a space and opened what I think is probably the first thrift store for pets. So we just have things in the store for pets. And we do ask, a dollar or two or whatever, but people in need can shop, and it's all by donation. So somebody that's just, say they're living on the street and they got everything taken away by the police, they can come in, we'll hook them up with everything they need, a crate, a halter, and the food and everything's there. We have a formal food program, and we have a full-time social worker, thanks to California for All Animals, and now it's going to be renewed by the ASPCA. And that social worker helps get the people not just free dog food, but all different types of things that they need. So we have that space, and we were doing spay and neuter. We have a mobile clinic, and we saw that we could offer more and do more if we rented another space. So I have another retail space that I rented. So from the front, it looks like any other veterinarian hospital. But when you walk in, the walls are on wheels, everything's mobile. So we can downsize it, make it into a room where we could have a seminar or whatever. All of the medical veterinarian care is inside a mobile clinic that's parked in back of this property. So we can still go on the road, but the reality, I mean, that's a whole conversation too. The reality of running a spay and neuter or any kind of veterinarian thing that's mobile, again, it is really difficult. And it works better when you have a space in the community where they know where you're at all the time. It's just been a really good thing.
Well, unfortunately, we have to close up this session, even though there are some excellent questions still lingering here for you, Lori. I apologize for not getting to everyone's question, but Lori, I welcome you to stay engaged with the audience through Whova. It seems like people really want to connect. So thank you so much for being here. It has been an absolute privilege of mine to interview you. So thank you. And
thank you, Christine.
Now, everyone, we're going on a 30-minute break. Our next session doesn't begin until 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you all. Have a great break. And again, a million thanks to Lori Weise.